Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light. Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Hello, dear friends. This is Mission Evolution Radio Show, where we share innovative thoughts with today's leading scientific and esoteric experts, supporting the path to unity and enlightenment. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring Elephant in the Living Room, Evolving Animal Relations. It's amazing that many people believe love, compassion, and the ability to grieve is an attribute only people possess, that only humans have a soul, feel pain, or form family bonds. In truth, animals trump humans in all of these categories. If we're to evolve as a species, we first must reunite the wisdom and grandeur of the circle of life and all of our relations. In this, the animals will be our teachers, if we can change our behavior towards them in time. What do the animals have to teach us about life and love? What have we been overlooking in our arrogance? With us this hour to delve into this most important topic is wildlife photographer Larry Laverty. Following a 30-year career as a Hollywood actor, Larry shifted careers, becoming a professional photographer. This change of priorities was out of a lifelong concern for the environment and wildlife conservation. His dedication to elephants grew out of rapidly growing understanding of their gentle nature and mankind's crimes against them. His book, Power and Majesty, is a combination of his longtime passion for photography and writing. Larry holds a BS in finance and a BA in political science. He supports the work of conservation organizations in Africa through their use of his photographs and ongoing financial contributions. His website, LarryLavertyWildlife.com. Larry, thank you so much for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Oh, thank you for having me as a guest here, Gwilda.
It should be fun what we uncover as we work together.
Oh, yeah.
So what caused you to change your life path from a Hollywood actor to professional photographer?
It was a convergence for me of my process of studying humanity for over 30 years in order to become the best actor I could be, with uh, a growing observation of the troubles that mankind was bringing to wildlife in particular around the world.
So, how did you become involved in wildlife conservation?
Well, I guess there are many aspects to conserving wildlife on this planet, and for me, it all started when I was somewhere around 3 or 4 years old. One of my earliest memories, my mom insisted on rescuing a dog that had gotten onto the highway here, and it left an indelible mark on me that other beings besides humans deserve respect and need care just as we do. So it just kept growing from there, at least in my awareness, until I finally started taking action on behalf of the buffalo up in Yellowstone National Park here in the U.S. And that was the beginning where it really dawned on me that I was spending my time in a in a less than productive way, because entertainment is such a consumer item that once people watch a movie or watch TV, then they're on to the next thing, and only a few movies or TV shows actually have any kind of significant impact on the way we choose to live our lives, and so it was time to change. So I just it was an easy one, and in fact, because I felt like I'd enjoyed my time. I'd been more successful in Hollywood than many of my class that went in there at the time, and I was fulfilled.
That's great. Do you think why do you think that wildlife conservation is so paramount at this particular time in history?
Because there's an increasing pressure on those wild beings that are still with us. As the human population grows around the planet, there's just less and less space. There's more and more conflict between humans and wildlife, and now is the time if we want to save any space for them to live. And the parks, as I witnessed in Africa primarily, I mean, there's two different yardsticks, you might say, for making this judgment, but you look at the national parks here in the United States, which is a fairly evolved animal, and then I look at Africa, and I come to certain conclusions, and now is the time. If we want elephants and lions and even grizzly bears with us for future generations, then we've got to start acting right now. So yeah, it's imperative.
Yeah, I would have to agree. What I've noticed is most humans are actually afraid of most wildlife. It's like wildlife has been portrayed for sensationalism and entertainment.
Yes, I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah,
a lot of truth to that humans are somewhat afraid. That's why we've been so active about killing them off. We're afraid of them coming for us, or coming for our loved ones, or eating the food that we want. So we just do away with them. It's been going on for centuries, and so yeah, that fear factor is very present.
So is this the conflict you were speaking about between humans and animals is the result of this fear, do you think?
There's a little bit of that. If I was to talk specifically about Africa and the elephants, there's a little bit of that fear factor going on, because in a village in a remote corner of Africa, there's no police force to come rescue you or take care of your food supply. So it's just on you to make sure that you have food to keep yourself alive. And if a hungry elephant happens to come walking by your village or your little plot of land where you're growing your food supply, then you've got a problem on your hands. And so it goes almost past the fear element into some primal place where you got to get rid of this threat to your life, and you'll use any means possible. If folks out in the bush of Africa have a gun, they'll use it. If they don't, and they have a spear, which many do, then they'll use the spear. And as a result, many elephants have died.
Do you think, though, that the village protecting their food is the largest threat to elephants, or what else is going on?
In the last 150 years, the biggest threat was the ivory trade. That started off with the colonial folks from Europe primarily, although some from what are now the Arab nations, going after the elephants just to harvest their ivory tusks. That was the biggest threat. But the population of elephants has been reduced to such a low number now, and finding an elephant to kill has just increasingly difficult. So now it's, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest threat and the looming one for the distant future is habitat loss and these direct conflicts when elephants come through a place where people are raising food.
Habitat encroachment's huge in the States, too. I mean, all of our wildlife is suffering because there's so many of us as people, right?
Yeah, we're sort of the end of the spectrum here in the United States. We've set aside our national parks. We have them intact, and we believed that we had put forward a good effort to preserve the wildlife and the wild spaces. But because the animals that live in these places generally migrate and take up more space in the search for food and water, we never did really acknowledge, and that started with the world's first national park, that being Yellowstone. The ecosystem in which all the wild animals live was never really acknowledged, and so we created this artificial sanctuary. And in the wintertime in particular, when food and water become scarce, especially in that part of the world, then the buffalo in particular have to move to lower elevations where they're immediately subject to hunting and, in the case of Yellowstone, culling.
Mm. That's, the ecosystem. That's another fascinating factor that we just, nature has such wisdom in the way she puts things together and how they work together in their seasons. And we're pretty ignorant of that even yet. We keep getting these surprises. Do you know anything about what happened in Yellowstone when they reintroduced the wolf?
Yes, of course. The wolves didn't necessarily just stay in Yellowstone, and so that's led to the ongoing conflict in the surrounding states of Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, where there's a large livestock industry, and of course wolves will take down cows, and so there was a fight to bring back the hunt of the wolf, and which has succeeded, and so it's the same thing that the buffalo are facing up there, and as far as I'm
We're going to have to take a little break here, but I want to pick up with the buffalo and the wolf on the other side of our pause. Okay. Larry and I will return shortly, so don't go away. You're listening to the Mission Evolution Radio Show, coming to you on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Path Home Shamanic Art School proudly presents the Gathering of Shaman 2019 Fall Retreat, Manifestation Samhain. Join me, certified shamanic instructor Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magnificent Colorado Mountains this November 2nd and 3rd for a life-changing event. Participate in unique teachings and ceremonies that'll put the power and magic of shamanic manifestation into your hands. Sit in circle with like-minded individuals, sharing group energy and the power it generates. Classes will be held in a facility next to the beautiful, majestic Arkansas River, further empowering the experience. Space is limited, so reserve your spot today. For more information, visit findyourpathhome.com or email touchin@findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is the Mission Evolution Radio Show, missionevolution.org. We're dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. Our special guest this hour is Larry Laverty. His website, LarryLavertyWildlife.com. Larry, we were just getting into talking about the wolves being reintroduced into Yellowstone. And, of course, we know about all the problem with livestock and this and that. But there was also another factor that I don't know if you're aware of or not, is that they actually increased that because they gleaned the herds of animals, a lot of the grazing came back and more of a balance to the animals that are in the park. Did you hear about anything about that?
Yes, I am not in the immediate scientific community there to comment on that, but one thing we do have to acknowledge is that there's a third player involved, and that's humans. So we're determined to manage whatever impact the wolves would have up there. And so if the wolves aren't doing their job, then we will, which has led to this ongoing culling of the buffalo, which actually started back in the days from when the park was first created. It's just a demonstration of the determination of human beings to micromanage everything that we do and everywhere that we are.
Without the understanding of the entire ecosystem again.
Oh yeah, we could care less. The main point is commercial value and these artificial property lines that have been set up so that the commercial value of the land can be managed.
Mm. So what drew you specifically to the African elephant?
What am I?
No, what drew you specifically to the African elephant?
Well, that came out of the blue for me. It's one of those things in your life where your life can just change on a dime. And I was reading the paper here at home one morning, and I saw that the local zoo, I live a mile from the zoo here, and the Oakland Zoo happens to be one of the most respected in the country, and we were the first to pioneer the non-contact management of elephants, following the unfortunate death of the elephant keeper that was here at the time. So I was reading, and my first grade teacher, who I'd kept in touch with throughout her life until she passed, was a docent. Once she completed her career, she was a docent for another 20 years at that zoo.
What's a docent?
A docent is sort of a facilitator in the learning, the educational aspect of the mission statement for zoos. So they'll volunteer their time and they'll be on hand at the exhibits to offer what information they have and what observations they've made regarding the behavior of any particular animal that's there. So they're actually the point of contact for many people who go to zoos. Once you go past the turnstile, that's pretty much it. If there's a docent on duty, then that's where you'll get your information, aside from the signage that they have.
Oh, she sounds like a lovely lady.
Oh, she was. She made it to 100 years old, and she deserved to have such a long and rich life. But it was because of her that I had an affinity for the zoo, at least a small one. And when I read that they had decided to endorse this first global march for elephants back in 2013, it struck something in me, and I to this day can't identify what it is, but I went to that march. It was held in 50 cities around the world to call attention to the impacts of the ivory trade. And so I went to the nearest one to me, that being in San Francisco. And along with over 1,000 other people, we marched several miles. And I would look around periodically during that march and think, wow, this is the only occasion that I know of where humans will get together and protest on behalf of another species. We weren't out there protesting for higher wages or better conditions or against some political activity. We were in a very selfless way out trying to speak our minds that this event, the ivory trade that was going on in the world, was a bad thing, and we wanted to see an end to it. So that really kicked me into gear, and so I was just inspired by this act, and then I, in the coming days, learned more about what was going on regarding the ivory trade, the supply side and the demand side. And I just got increasingly upset with it all and inspired to learn more and more until finally I found myself an outspoken critic, and on social media in particular, and even when I go to the grocery store, I would bring up, and I still do, bring up the conversation. Do you know about elephants and this and that? But I kept going.
Many of us have never even seen an elephant except, well, maybe in a zoo or on television. What can you share about them that's not apparent?
Yeah, this is exactly why I went to Africa in the first place. I thought I was distinctly unqualified to be a spokesman for elephants since I hadn't seen one in the wild, only at the circuses and in the zoo. So I went, and at first, it's like anything in life, any relationship, it takes a little bit of time to get a grasp of what you're seeing and what's going on. And so for me, when I saw the very first wild elephant, it happened to be this beautiful male who was moving over the landscape at a pretty good clip, and I just went alongside of him for a while, and he looked like any other being that has four legs going along, with the exception of his size and the trunk, of course. But then with each time over there, I determined to learn more. And the list now, as elephants are different than human beings, and the similarities as well, is pretty long for me. And so, to directly answer your question, I think what really jumped out at me was their ability to love. Love and caring is how I define the elephant, especially within the family context.
How did you observe this? How could you tell that they love?
It's very similar to human beings. There's a lot of contact, generally with the head and the trunk. And so there's that, and then of course the one event that really caught me was I came upon over in Kenya. I came upon this line, this family group of elephants on their way somewhere. So I decided to follow them, And in the process, I discovered they were heading for this big water hole. So I sat around the water hole. I decided to run ahead and got there a little ahead of the entire family, and I watched as the first ones who arrived there lingered around, and instead of being like humans might be, rushing and pushing each other out of the way to get the water first, those who were there first waited until all of the family were there, and then they all drank together. I thought the awareness of their family group and their selflessness and their concern for each other's well-being, because there's never any guarantees that everybody's going to make it to the water hole. There's lions along the way. There's physical obstacles, and that really that was my first trip over that I witnessed that. And then there's plenty of other demonstrations, especially in the raising of young elephants, where basically the entire family group takes a part. All the sisters and the aunts and uncles and grandma and all of them are involved. It's not like we are here in this in the human society, where it's pretty much incumbent on the parent. There's quite
we split up as families.
Yes, exactly. And so that's another thing that separates elephants. This structure of being primarily female based society in these family groups, because the males are pushed and choose to leave their original family group to go out into the world, and that leaves all the women folks there to look after each other. And as we know throughout the history of life on Earth, I think the more sensible and sensitive beings tend to be the females, and so that's why the integrity of love and caring has persisted in the world of elephants.
So are the males pushed out kind of like in elk herds as well, so that the for biodiversity?
Yeah, it's true for most species, wild species, that's the case. That it's all the greater picture, as you mentioned early on in our conversation here, that nature knows best, and Mother Nature has been working at this long before man came along, so that there's no interbreeding and the basic energy that older males will bring to a community, that is pushed off for the well-being of the entire species.
I understand that we're about out of time in the segment, but I understand that the females will surround one giving birth to protect the calf.
Yeah, I have not seen a birth myself. That's one of the things I've been dying to see, but
Yeah.
I can't speak to that directly. I do know that frequently during matings, which I've seen quite a few of, that the family group will, once the act has been taken care of, then they'll gather around. It's as if they're all saying,
Celebrating.
Are you okay? And how you doing?
Well, we have to take another quick pause. Larry and I will return to our discussion shortly, so you stay right there. This is the Mission Evolution Radio Show. We're coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome back. This is the Mission Evolution Radio Show, missionevolution.org, bringing leading-edge information, supporting the path to enlightenment. We're speaking with Larry Laverty, his website, LarryLavertyWildlife.com. Larry, let's talk a little bit about what does our relationship with the animals, and particularly the elephant, have to do with evolving as human beings? You say the human ability to save elephants reflects the ability to save our own humanity. Would you please go into that a little bit?
First I have to look at the definition of evolution, and I think as human beings we jump to the conclusion that if we're evolving, then we're improving. It's a false assumption as far as I can see, and so we have to really pay more attention as a species as to what we're calling evolution and how we're doing it, and along the way, that involves how we're relating to the wildlife and the wild lands that we've allowed to continue.
So if we're going to evolve, it doesn't really mean coming into a more completeness or a more wholeness, which would involve all of our relations?
Well, I guess, again, you have to, what is meant by completeness and wholeness? Generally, human beings are pretty self-oriented and what's in it for me oriented, and that usually doesn't accommodate what's going to be best for wild places and wildlife. So that's what the definition. Even though the United States in particular and Canada as well and parts of Europe have done their token best to set aside places, reserves, where the wild way of being was when we first discovered it. But just the way we've chosen to manage these parks, these places, is pretty indicative of what's going on and how, in the bigger picture, we are in fact relating to the rest of the world.
What role do elephants play in Africa's biodiversity?
One time in Zimbabwe, I met a park worker, and he was complaining of how the elephants were destroying the park, and I could tell that he had some definition of the park in his mind that might represent something like Central Park in New York City or something, where every tree and every bush was manicured and looked nice, and that was the place from where he was making his judgments that elephants and other animals should not be altering the landscape. But elephants being elephants, they're the biggest living land animal on Earth. They need a lot of food, and in order to get that food, they have to upset the landscape a little bit, whether they're going for roots or branches of trees or wherever they're sourcing their food. They will do what they have to do to get what they want, and in the process, they can knock down. Again in Zimbabwe, I watched this one in my book. I titled a chapter "Dozer" for representing bulldozer. This elephant, just in the span of about 10 minutes, knocked down 4 or 5 trees, and these were sizable trees. He wanted to get to the roots. So he knocked these trees down, and I just watched him lean into them, and just one after another until he found just the right root that he wanted. But in the process of this destruction, and to the dismay of the park worker, he was doing the park and all the other wildlife there a favor by keeping vegetation under control. Otherwise, I've been to other parts of Africa where the elephants have been they're basically under local extinction, where they've been hunted out. They're no longer there, and all the vegetation has reached this dense place where it's difficult for wildlife to move around, and in so doing, that it becomes difficult for the wildlife to find food and water. So elephants are sort of known as this keystone species around which an ecosystem revolves by nature of their ability to keep the vegetation managed.
And it's so sad that we don't recognize these things until after the fact, when they're extinct in an area.
Yeah, and of course, again, it all comes back to the commercial value of the land as humans deem it. And there was this one great event over in Africa where the colonials decided we have all this land. Let's grow some peanuts here. And in Africa, the plantations, as you might call them, are pretty sizable. So in order to do that, to grow all these peanuts, they had to first get rid of all the wild animals, because they knew that the wild animals would probably come and eat the peanuts once they were grown. So hunters were brought in, and all of the animals were killed off, including countless elephants. And the result of this great event was that the colonials neglected to think ahead of time about their source of water. And so they planted all their peanuts, and I believe it was just in the first season alone that they determined we can't get enough water to these peanuts, and they walked away.
And left nothing but dead land and dead animals.
Dead land and dead animals. And in my travels throughout Africa, I've come upon places that just have that feel that I can imagine with the knowledge that I have and what I've seen. I can imagine a certain landscape teeming with all sorts of the whole spectrum of wildlife, but because of the presence of man, there's nothing there. There's just an odd landscape of trees that don't necessarily belong, and shrubbery that's taken over.
Would you outline for us what all has played a part in putting the elephant in danger of extinction? What are all the factors?
Well, the immediate factor that comes to mind is the human population, and every problem that the elephants face, at least as far as human history can determine, is all their problems have been brought by humans. And so initially there was at least as the best we can tell, there was a harmony, there was a balance between the human populations of that being the native Africans and the elephants. And at that time, the elephant population grew to somewhere between 20 and 27 million. So they were common, and the native folks just acknowledged their place in the balance of things. But then when the colonials came, starting about 200 years ago, and decided that Africa was this place where we should harvest and as usual use to our benefit in every way possible. Then the elephants started taking a hit, and that was primarily for their ivory, because it was determined that there was a great use for this ivory. You could sculpt it. It was like wood, but had this beautiful white and other qualities to it. And so the colonials started things off on a bad foot by harvesting millions of elephants. And then once the colonials backed off of that, the locals started meeting the supply, primarily for Asia, but also for Europe and the United States along the way. But the most recent chapter of the ivory trade has been conducted almost extensively or exclusively by the local native Africans, and then funneling their ivory to the folks of Asia.
Well, it looks like we go back full circle. It has to do with fear and greed, doesn't it? Fear of lack and greed.
Yeah, there's both are definitely going on, and it's challenging for people who care about elephants and wildlife in particular, because it's not just the elephants that are suffering from mankind over there. The lions are on the brink, and a lot of this, thank goodness that people have spoken out about the elephants and the ivory trade, and so I think that's it's certainly more under control than it was when it was at its height. But what has not been acknowledged is all the other species that are on the brink of possible extinction also, and that's the iconic lion, and of course the giraffes, and you can just go down the line of every iconic animal in Africa, and they're all suffering these cataclysmic declines in population. And
what do you mean by iconic? I'm sorry.
Well, these are like when we think of Africa, we think of what we've seen on TV and in movies, and of course with the latest Lion King coming out, we think of elephants, we think of lions, maybe we think of rhinos, giraffes. The most common.
So icon.
Yes.
Okay, I see.
And so these are all.
Well, it's time for another commercial break, Larry. Larry and I will be back shortly, so don't leave us now. This is the Mission Evolution Radio Show on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, The 70-Year Cover-Up Exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now to receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hides' life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
Welcome back. This is Mission Evolution Radio Show, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. To suggest a topic or guest, email us, info@missionevolution.org. Our guest this hour is Larry Laverty. His website, LarryLavertyWildlife.com. Larry, what is the social disruption elephants are experiencing due to poaching practices?
That's a long story. we could take an hour just talking about the impact of humans on elephants through poaching, but primarily it's in Africa. Both the female and male adult elephants will have significant tusks generally, although there are actually a number of genetic exceptions to that where there's tuskless adult elephants. But so in the past, the poachers don't discriminate between male and female, and frequently will take out a female mother, leaving her little baby there, if the baby is lucky, still alive, to witness the death of its mother, and then to determine its own survival, which is slim to nil. So it just cuts to the heart of the fabric of elephant life when a female in particular is taken down. And of course, when the males are taken down, that interrupts their circle, because once elephants leave their original families, they go out and they have social lives with other males out roaming the bush. And so their fabric, their knowledge that they then have to pass down to the next generation of young males, that once they leave their original families, they learn from the older males. And if the older males, especially in areas where poaching has been at high levels, excuse me, then the chain of knowledge is broken. So those are the two most prominent, the caring for the young and the knowledge that's lost of where water holes are and where food is most plentiful. These are things that elephants file away in their intelligence, and it's interrupted when populations are hit hard.
How do we know they do that? How do we know they file it away and share the knowledge?
Because there are plenty of scientists that have been living out with elephants. I happened to come across a fellow in Tanzania. I saw him in a most remote place, and I thought I couldn't imagine. He looked out of place. I couldn't imagine what he was doing out there. And he said that he had come there working. He was from the UK, and he had done his graduate project with the elephants, and he had fallen in love with them, as many people who go to Africa for science do. And so he just stayed. And so it's through people like him who day after day after day are with the elephants year after year. They're not just living with them, they're studying them intensely. And I did my best to do this in the months that I've been out with them. But when you're talking about 5, 10, 15, 20 years of every single day, you're out there witnessing the behavior. It's no different than in our families. We know exactly what our spouses are going to do and how they're thinking, or for the most part, and the same with our children. And just from being with them, you get a pretty good read. And so that's where our knowledge has come from.
Do you think that we're projecting our traits onto them, or do you think that they're displaying them better than we do?
There's a little of both going on. But yes, there is, of course, in everything that humans do, that tendency to project our judgment systems onto what we're seeing. But it's just true across the board in terms of studying life. Whether you're talking human beings or orangutans or whatever kind of animal, that there are certain behaviors that are just undeniable. So I think the conclusions that have been made are fairly objective ones.
How does the preservation of the African elephant directly impact the future of all wildlife in Africa? Well, for that matter, in the world.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if we can't save the remaining elephants, and there's now less than 500,000, that down from the 20 to 27 million that were alive just 200 years ago, then we're in trouble, and it also doesn't bode well for human beings. And I think that's what when you're operating in a vacuum, as the human populations of Africa have been doing and continue, then eventually you're going to run up against a trouble that will just alter you in a way that there's no turning back from. And so the biggest issue is the growth of the human beings. And Africa is, if we just take the one little country of Nigeria, which is about the size of Texas here in the United States, that country in 5 or 10 years, I think it is from now, will have the same population as the entire United States.
Good grief.
And that gives that, just if you use that as a yardstick, and then you take a look at the rest of Africa, the reproductive rates of humans is astounding. Where on average, most countries, each mother gives birth to 4 to 6 children, and having 10 children is not uncommon.
My goodness. That adds up fast, doesn't it?
So it adds up fast, and of course, the populations are not able to create the lives that are necessary for these new children born, at least in terms of 21st century standards. And so that's where the problems for the remaining wildlife lie, that there's just an increasing need for more and more land to raise livestock, to raise crops, and the conflicts. Yes, education has improved significantly throughout Africa, thanks almost entirely to the impacts of the colonials. That's one positive that can be said for the impact of the colonial powers in Africa, that they brought education, organized education, but utilizing that education for the benefit of all, including wildlife, is something that's still in the works.
Larry, what's the most profound thing you've learned from animals?
I have a constant battle, a daily battle, not being jaded, not looking at humanity only in terms of all of our ills and the negative impacts that we bring to the planet. I grew up and live in a sizable urban area with significant challenges in terms of economics, in terms of race, and I look at the simplicity of wildlife, and I think their main objective is to have enough food and to have enough water and some security. Those are what they're after, and somehow with all of the complications that human beings have managed to bring into our own lives, some fundamental values and realities are in jeopardy of being lost, possibly forever.
Well, we have about 1 minute left. Time has flown. If you were to leave our listeners with one message about human-animal relations, what would it be?
I'll just echo what you have said, that we are fully capable of learning so much from animals, whether they're domestic or wild, it doesn't matter, just by observing them, that if we take the time to divorce ourselves from the lives that we've created, which are so fast-paced and set around certain objectives, if we took that time, we'd be far better off as a species. The human race has some challenges coming up over the rest of this century, significant ones, and so how we go about addressing those challenges can be improved in the process of appreciating the life that's around us, the wildlife around us.
Do you think that also involves starting to really pay attention to the way life works together?
Yeah, that's again, so many things are lost when greed, when selfishness, when the commercial value of anything is the focus. And so if we could see past that, then we'd be in a much better place. We, as a group, it's not enough just to have the latest iPhone, or to have a big screen TV, or to have a big SUV. That's the focus. This economic society that we live in is our biggest challenge. Our own accomplishments are our biggest challenge.
Well, again, time has flown and now we're out of it. Larry, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you, Wilda. Thank you for having the talk with me.
It's been a pleasure. Our guest this hour has been wildlife photographer and the author of Power and Majesty, Larry Laverty. His website, LarryLavertyWildlife.com. For our amazing past episode collection, visit our website, www.missionevolution.org. This has been Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Join us next time as this mission continues, bringing information, resources, and support to an evolving world.